Hey everyone, today I'm working with the Losi 5T. I'm going to be upgrading the servos and downgrading the exhaust system. Find out why coming up in this video. Thanks for joining me in this video. My name is Greg, and before we get started with today's project video, I've got a question for you, and actually I need your help. I bought this truck used off of Marketplace, and from day one, the back end, the suspension just completely compresses with it just sagging down. This is all the more suspension I've got in the back before it bottoms out. The front has always acted normal. If you know what's going on with this, let me know by leaving a comment down below. I definitely appreciate it, and I know that there's a lot of Losi 5T experts out there. Now back to today's upgrade servos, or just simply changing them out, and the downgrade to the exhaust system. As I just mentioned, I picked this up used, and the servos sound a little crunchy, and the previous owner took the canister muffler off that comes stock on the truck and they put a tuned pipe on. So let's get the body off the truck and take a look at what's going on. We'll check out the steering servo first. For the transmitter, I'm running a Spectrum DX5C, pretty popular for running with this kit. Now, when I go all the way to one side, this is the endpoint adjustment at 100%. And we can clearly see this has a lot more travel. In fact, I'll go all the way to one extent and turn the receiver off. And just look at how little the wheels are actually turning. And I've got that much more travel I can go before the linkages bind up. So I'm going to just simply change it out to a servo that's newer, and this has been doing kind of some funky things in the background, so this is kind of a no-brainer. The other one that we're going to check out is the throttle servo, and hopefully it'll do it this on camera, but this one's actually pretty scary. It sounds pretty crunchy. I'm going to readjust the camera and let's check that out. Look at that. I'm just holding the throttle down and it's jolting back and forth. If I give it a minute to kind of warm up, that does go away. That sounds pretty bad though, and that jittering servo on a model this big and heavy and fast, that's definitely gonna get replaced. Since we're here, let's check out the exhaust system. This is what the previous owner put on, and honestly, it's been working really well. A tuned pipe is the easiest way to get better throttle response and add a whole bunch more power to this 23cc engine. The reason why I want to get rid of this is it's loud. I mean, it's crazy loud. I'm gonna grab a decibel meter later on before I take this off and get a measurement, because with the camera microphones, you don't get an appreciation for just how ear-piercingly loud these things are. And that's why I'm pulling this performance part off and putting this little box canister back on. So I'm willing to go without some of that throttle response and a whole lot of power if I can run the truck without earplugs. Here's the servo I'm going to be installing. It's rated for 10 to 12.6 volts, and the Losi receiver is 7.4 volts, but this will still work. It just gets derated on the speed and the power, of course. I'm gonna see if I can find all the technical specs for this and put that up on the screen as well, and we'll get a top view, and here is the model number. We'll also have a link to this down below in the video description. Installing the servos, it should be pretty straightforward. I don't think I need to film that. One thing I am a little concerned about is the servo horn for the throttle brake system that is specific to the Losi 5T, and fingers crossed if the tooth count on that servo horn matches the tooth count on the top of this servo. Honestly, I don't think it's going to match up, so I might have to take the steering servo that doesn't make weird noises, and that might end up going into the throttle brake position. We'll find out when I catch back up with you in just a couple minutes once I've got these installed. Steering and throttle servos are removed. When I went to install the new servo in the throttle position, the servo horn for the throttle just isn't going to fit on here. So instead, it's going to be the steering servo moving over to the throttle position. I'll see if I can find the detailed specs on all three of the servos. Checking back in with a little bit of an update here. I've removed the steering servo and moved it over to the throttle position. That looks like it's going to work. I installed the new steering servo that looks like this, turned the radio gear on, and I'm still getting the same limited travel that I was before. Once again, I went through the transmitter, the DX5C, and I went through all the settings in there to try and figure out what's limiting the travel of the servo. I know that I checked the endpoint adjustment. I've got it cranked up to 100% or even beyond that, and I still barely get 90 degrees of rotation out of this aftermarket servo, and it's actually rated for 270 degrees. I even went on the internet and rechecked all the forum boards and stuff like that, and nothing really touches base on that. And finally, I just gave up using the Spectrum radio system along with the receiver that came in the kit. I'm going to put those off to the side, and I've got a Radiolink that I've used on other models, and I actually like the fit and feel of this transmitter over the Spectrum one. And this model is going to be the RC4GS version 3. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just letting you know what I'm doing. So I've got that receiver put in the kit, and now I have all of the steering travel that I could ever want. And for me personally, the menu system within this radio system is a lot easier to understand. It doesn't quite do everything that the Spectrum does, and maybe that's why I think that the menu system on here is quite a bit more complicated, because there's a lot of stuff this can do that I don't need. So whether it makes sense or not, I'm kind of done with this radio system, and I'm going to go back to something that makes sense to me. And in the end, I'm the only person that this radio system has to make sense with. So with that, I'm going to continue getting everything buttoned up and check back in with you, hopefully very shortly. The radio gear is all sorted out, and using this other transmitter, to me, everything makes so much more sense, makes it a lot easier for me. Well, let's grab the camera and check out what everything looks like. And right away, with everything powered up, none of the servos are buzzing. Let's check out the throttle and the brake. Now, this being the steering servo, I think this is going to be running a little bit slower than the original one that was in there, but as we saw earlier, this one was all crusty and not very trustworthy. When we check out the steering servo, check out all this travel. That is exactly what I'm looking for. Now, this is going to be running a little bit slower because we are running it at a lower voltage, but now that I switched out the radio gear, this receiver is rated for 15 volts, so I could run a 3S battery pack for the receiver. I just have to look up the specs on this servo motor to make sure that it can run at that higher voltage. The radio gear is all sorted out, and I'm going to turn my attention over to this very loud tuned pipe. I'm going to run a test first outside, and I'm not going to blow your eardrums out in case you're listening to this video with earbuds in, but I am going to have a sound meter, and if I can get it on the camera, we're going to see that just me talking is going to be around 60 to 75 decibels, and right now it's going to tell me that it's a conversation or maybe a noisy restaurant. I think when we get this started up, this thing is going to be off the chart. Check that out. We're library quiet. At idle, we're just below the red zone. Just realized I don't have to speak over the truck. We'll see if we can pick it up on the camera, but the max decibel reading was over 100, which is going to be a car horn or a subway. I think I'm gonna have to cover up my tracks here before my wife gets home and sees I've cut little divots or dug little divots with the truck. Oh crap, I ran into a couple issues with this too. The first one being the throttle linkage hits the edge of the muffler. I'm sure I could go in there and kind of grind a little notch right there so that this has proper clearance. The bigger issue is going to be this does not line up correctly. Let's take a closer look at that. I just heard the washer drop, or the gasket drop down to the motor plate. Everything is fighting me today, but it's still better than being at work. So when we take a look at the gasket does in fact line up. It does have some slots here, and the holes are a little bit oversized. And I take the muffler, I'm going to line up this bolt so it'd be in the center, and it's going to be this one here. Hopefully we can see it. It's off by half a hole, so not even close to fitting. So I guess this is going to have to get boxed back up and sent back, and I'll have to try another one. So for now, I'm going to have to put that loud tuned pipe on, but after working most of the morning on this, on something I thought was going to be done in well under an hour, it's been quite a while later. Did a lot of stuff I didn't think I'd need to do, but you know, for me it's fun and it's relaxing. I'm going to throw that pipe back on here, grab the GoPro, go back into the woods and run a couple hot laps and check out my Losi 5T that can now actually turn properly. Always a great time in the backwoods ripping around with the Losi 5T. The new steering servo is working out great. While it is a little bit slower, I do get all of the turning action out of the truck that I'm looking for, and this thing handles so much better out in that track. I also now have a lot of peace of mind knowing that I've got a good servo controlling the throttle and braking action of the truck. One thing that I still have to figure out is why the back end of the truck keeps sagging down so much. The shocks seem like they're okay, the sway bar looks good. If you got any ideas, once again, let me know in the comments down below. One of the things that I'm looking at doing before the end of this year is getting the 30 Degree North Stadium truck, which is essentially a clone of the Losi 5T. Now the models that I'm looking at can be found over at Fearless RC, and once again, I'm not affiliated with them whatsoever. It's just a place that I go to when I'm shopping around or I'm daydreaming about the next large-scale model that I'd like to add to the collection. All right, now the 5T, it has tons of performance. It does a lot of things really cool. One thing that I'm always concerned about is when I hit something or when I tumble the truck, while this body has scale realism to it, it doesn't take very much and parts start ripping and denting apart. That 30 Degree North is made out of basically like storage container Tupperware, that thick, flexible rubber, and in fact, a lot of Losi 5T drivers will go over to 30 Degree North and buy a full body kit. They buy it once and they never have to replace it again because that 30 Degree North body, it never rips, it never tears, it never punctures. It's just extremely durable. There's a number of other reasons that I would like to get that other truck as well, but we'll save that for a future video. Thanks for joining me in this video, and don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. Not only is it a great way to help this channel grow, it's an awesome way to connect video content like this with other great RC enthusiasts just like yourself. And until we meet again in the next video, I'm Greg from Adventure RC1.